The Magic Keyboard. I don't know about you, but when I first saw this presented, I was absolutely blown away by it. Does this make my iPad a computer? I'm a very skeptical person when it comes to these things, and I've had the keyboard for about 2 weeks now, and I've put it through all the tests so I can tell you exactly what I think about it. And I'm also going to mention all the things that you might want to consider when deciding whether or not you want to get this keyboard, and also things that no one else has mentioned in their reviews. The good, the bad, and the ugly is coming right up. iPad letterers, welcome back to my channel. My name is Karen, I'm from iPad Lettering, and I'm here to help you bring out your most creative inner self using your iPad. So yes, the Magic Keyboard. Oh, here it is in all its glory. And the big question, of course, is does this keyboard make my iPad a computer? And no, I'm not going to make you wait until the end of this video to answer this question. I'm going to tell you right now, no, this does not make my iPad a computer. So the next question is, well, why did you get that keyboard anyway? And did you not know this? And yes, I knew exactly that this would not make my iPad a computer, and I decided to get it anyway, despite all the hype and the price and the fact that it won't make my iPad a computer. And now I've come up with a list of pros and cons so that you can make a very informed decision about whether or not you think you want to get one of these keyboards for yourself. There's 5 things I actually really like about the keyboard, but then there's also 5 things I don't like so much. So let's get right into it, and let's start with the things I really like. So the first thing is that the keyboard is actually really well made. It's got a very solid hinge that folds up and down really nicely, and it just feels very nice. It feels like a very solid product, and it's really easy to put the iPad on the keyboard as well. So I'm just going to show you how this works. I've got the 2020 iPad here, and all I have to do now is just put it on the keyboard and it snaps on and it sits there very firmly. So you can see now you can turn it around and you can kind of hold it upside down and it doesn't fall off, and it really feels solid. It actually takes a little bit of strength to take it off again, but it's not too hard, so I feel Apple really got this right. And then another thing I really like about that keyboard is that it actually works with the 2018 iPad as well. I've got the 2018 iPad right here, and you can see this is the one that only has one camera, and it actually works exactly the same. You can also put this on the keyboard and it just works. And if you were thinking about upgrading to the latest 2020 iPad so that you can use the keyboard, the good news is that you don't. In fact, I actually don't think there's a difference between the 2 iPads. I'm still using the 2018 iPad as well, and I've noticed no difference at all. The only reason why you might want to consider upgrading to the 2020 iPad is if you run out of space on your 2018 iPad, but that's really the only reason. Other than that, I do not recommend that you upgrade your iPad, and you can still use the keyboard with it as well. And then the next thing I really like about this keyboard is the actual typing experience. Yes, you probably would expect it, but this is really fantastic. I'm normally using this iMac keyboard for all the work that I do, and it feels exactly the same. So it's really good. And also, if you're already familiar with all the keyboard shortcuts for your Mac, if you're a Mac user, then you will feel right at home with this keyboard because the shortcuts work in a very similar way, and it's just really nice to use. And then probably the thing I like most about this new keyboard is the trackpad. And this is also the reason why I was really keen to get the keyboard. It makes all the difference. Yes, you could use a mouse or an external trackpad, but who wants to use one of those sitting on the couch, right? One of the things you might want to do is change your settings to use a tab instead of a press with your trackpad. And you can do that in the settings and the trackpad. So you select this and you select here tap to click. And then you probably want to turn on a 2-finger secondary click as well, especially if you're you're used to doing this on your Mac already. And then I also recommend that you increase your tracking speed. It just means it makes it really easy to get from one end of the screen to the other without having to move your finger too much. Most apps work really well on the iPad when using the keyboard. It's very easy to navigate using the trackpad. And of course now the massive benefit is that you don't have to touch the screen. And this really makes all the difference when it comes to productivity on your iPad. This is of course mostly thanks to the new version of iPad OS, which now also lets you connect a mouse or a trackpad. And you would actually get the same benefit if you connected a mouse or a trackpad to your iPad. And then the next thing I really like about this keyboard is that it makes the iPad float. So you can see how it's a little bit suspended. It doesn't sit flush on the keyboard like with the previous version of the keyboard. And this is especially useful when sitting on the couch, which actually brings me to the next point. I really enjoy using the iPad and the keyboard sitting on the couch. You might have seen different reviews where people complain about using that keyboard on your lap and the fact that it might fall over, but I have not noticed that. I actually find it extremely comfortable, but it's also possible it's because I'm sitting a little bit differently on the couch. But for me, this is amazing and it really improves the productivity working from the couch. Another benefit of using the keyboard instead of a laptop sitting on the couch is that the bottom doesn't get warm because the iPad sits here. There's nothing here at the bottom of the keyboard. So when you have the keyboard sitting on your lap, it doesn't have the same heat problem a laptop would have. And then the number 5 Pro this keyboard gives you is that it provides an extra charging port. And yes, I know this is a small thing, but again, I find this really useful. So the iPad has a charging port on the right-hand side here, but then the keyboard will give you another charging port and it's on the other side. And again, this is not something anyone has mentioned, but I think this is actually really clever. So depending on how long your cable is or where you're sitting, you have the option of plugging in the iPad either on your right hand side or on your left hand side. So overall, I'm actually really happy about the keyboard, but there are some cons and some of the things you might want to be aware of before you make a decision about getting the keyboard. And let's start with number 5, and that is that keyboard is quite heavy. With the iPad attached, this is actually heavier than a 13-inch MacBook Pro, which doesn't bother me right now because I'm not traveling much anyway, but normally when I travel, I take both my laptop and my iPad, and carrying them both around now could be a little bit of an issue. So what I'm probably going to do is when I travel, I'll only take the iPad and I might actually leave the keyboard behind. Which brings me to my next problem, which is yes, I still need a laptop and you will most likely too. Especially if you're used to using computers all your life and are very fast with the applications that you use on your computers daily. I've tried using the iPad exclusively for a week and I gave up after just one day. I'm so much more productive with my computer. The multitasking feature is not quite the same, especially also because not all apps support the split screen feature. I know there's a number of people out there who haven't used computers much, and if you're one of them, then you might not have this problem. And yes, you can connect the iPad to an external screen, but it won't give you more screen real estate and it also won't solve the multitasking problem. So it's definitely not replacing my laptop and my iMac anytime soon. And then the number 3 in my list of cons is that you can't use the iPad in portrait mode. There's a few apps that are only available in portrait mode, such as Instagram, and it's not usable with the keyboard attached. So I have to take the keyboard off if I want to use an app that only supports portrait mode. It would be very nice if it was possible to rotate the iPad sitting on the keyboard, but Apple's design gods probably wouldn't have liked the extra piece here that is required to rotate the iPad, and so unfortunately it's landscape only. And then the second worst problem for me really is that I can't use the Apple Pencil while the iPad is attached to the keyboard. It's not practical. I can't put enough pressure on the screen having the iPad sitting up like this. So in order to do any iPad lettering work, I need to take the iPad off the keyboard. So there is a little workaround for that, and that is that you can turn the iPad around like this. so that the keyboard is sitting like this. And this gives you a little bit of a raised surface in order to do your lettering or your art where you're using the Apple Pencil. But it's actually not that stable. The hinge is not strong enough to really support the iPad, especially if you like to put a lot of pressure on the pencil, as I do. So if you wanted to prevent having to take the iPad out of the keyboard case, I recommend that you put something underneath here to support the iPad so that it doesn't collapse like this. And also to prevent having the keyboard sort of come over your screen, which is quite the hassle. And then you probably already know what the number one problem is. Yes, this keyboard is ridiculously expensive. It's $350 for the 12.9-inch version, and it's not much cheaper for the smaller version. I mean, yes, it's a solid product. It's really, really well made, and it's hands down much nicer than the previous version, but I don't think there's a reason why it has to be this much more expensive. Especially also given that iPadOS is not really quite ready to handle all the use cases where having a keyboard will come in really, really handy. So now, how do you decide? Well, I think there's plenty of good reasons why you might like to get a keyboard. It's a solid product and I really like using it a lot. I've never had an iPad keyboard before. This is actually my husband's old keyboard and I'm really glad I waited for this one. This is much, much better than the previous version. There's no question about that. It really makes me much more productive. Responding to emails or responding to your comments while sitting on the couch is much faster now, so I very much appreciate the keyboard for this. So I think as an accessory for my iPad, it works great and I'm glad that I got the keyboard, but it definitely doesn't replace my laptop or my computer. If you're in the same boat as me, I only recommend that you get the keyboard if you don't mind spending the money on it. If you have a laptop already and if you're thinking about replacing the laptop with an iPad, then I think you might actually be disappointed. But then if you're quite new to computers and if you're using your computer mostly for emails and surfing the internet and you don't have a laptop already, then I think this is actually a really good choice. It really gives you all the options because you can use the iPad and the Apple Pencil and the keyboard. So it's kind of a best of all worlds, especially also if you're not used to having a computer and you rely on all the applications that are only available on the computer. Then I think you'll get a lot of joy out of using this. And now over to you. Let me know your thoughts about the keyboard. Have you got one already or are you planning on getting one? Also, if you have more questions, if you want more clarifications about whether or not that keyboard is for you, definitely make sure that you leave a comment as well. And now that I have this keyboard, I'll be much faster answering all your questions. Give me a thumbs up if you found this video helpful. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to get notified every time I upload a new video. I'm also going to bloop up another couple of videos so that you can keep watching and you can keep learning about what to do with your iPad that makes you more creative. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in my next video.